Today, we're going to talk about leading with soul. But what does it mean to infuse leadership with a deep sense of purpose and authenticity? Join us as we explore the transformative power of soulful leadership, transcending conventional boundaries and touching the very essence of those who lead and those who follow. Welcome to Leading Intentionally, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of leadership transformation. I am Carmen Paredes, your guide in this journey, and I'm so thrilled to have you with us today. In each episode, we share strategies, insights, and stories to help you drive growth, enhance workplace culture, and lead with intentionality. Whether you are a seasoned executive, an aspired leader, or just someone passionate about positivity in the workplace, this podcast is for you. Each week, I'll bring you conversations with thought leaders, experts, and trailblazers that will share with you their insights, wisdom, and experiences so that you can apply these practical tips to your leadership journey. Get ready to explore topics like inclusive leadership, women's empowerment, effective communication, and so much more. If you're ready to lead intentionally and make lasting impact in your organization, you are in the right place. Let's embark in this transformative leadership journey together. This is Leading Intentionally. Let's dive in. Welcome to today's episode of Leading Intentionally. My name is Carmen Paredes, your host, and we are going to be talking about soulful leadership, leading with the soul. And I have a very special guest today. Her name is Stefani Morrow. She's the visionary founder and CEO of Soltis Unlimited. She's based in Dallas, and what she does is she takes her wealth of experiences, profound insights, unwavering passion for personal development, and a steadfast commitment to empowerment, drawing on decades of experience in educational leadership, training, development, and coaching. And she leads the work at Solstice Leadership Consulting. And in the pursuit, she places a significant focus on enhancing the capabilities of organizational leaders through robust capacity building initiatives. You're going to read more about all the amazing accomplishment of Stephanie in the description of the podcast, but I just want to get to the conversation and welcome Stephanie to the podcast. How are you, dear?
I'm good. Hello, Carmen. What just a beautiful introduction. I was like, is that me? Is she talking about me? But no,
Oh,
really,
yes, that is you, love.
yeah,
I am
very
so happy
excited
to
to be
have
here.
you. Yeah, thank you. I'm so happy to have you here today. I had the pleasure to have met Stephanie in person at an event in San Antonio, and I can tell you that she is a wealth of knowledge, information, energy, and love. And we're going to talk about one of those things that I love to talk about, which is soulful leadership. Like, how do you affect people's lives by really like connecting with who you are? This
Yeah.
is how I will define it, but I want you to help us define what do you call this, like, leading with the soul thing? What is it for you?
Yeah. Well, for me, when I think about, just about the solstice, just about a turning point, and then thinking
Mhm.
about that from the innermost part of our being, that soul piece, I believe it is the piece of us that is in divine alignment with that which, we call God, whatever people perceive that to be, whatever transcendent power people believe in. I believe that that is the part of us that is in total alignment with that piece of our existence. And so, with that being said, that piece never leads us wrong. That is the piece of us that is never in error. That is also the piece of us that is usually, bogged down just with the vicissitudes of life. If we aren't actively working to, really that muscle, really working that piece of our being and pouring into our souls, then that is the piece that goes unnoticed. That is the voice of inspiration, go here, do this, that we don't really tune into because we're so busy on the merry-go-round, or, we're living life, what I often call like an octopus on roller skates. But the soul, to me, as I said, is that innermost part of our being that really should inform all of who we are. And especially as it relates to leadership. I have a quote that I say, where you can't professionally be who you are not personally. And
Mhm.
so that strong sense of personal development being soul led and soul driven.
I absolutely love that. And the thing that's coming to mind, two things. One is like, because it's my podcast, I'm going to give myself permission to be woo for a second. It's your intuition that you're talking about, right? Like
Mhm.
that gut feeling that tells you, I should be doing this or not. I should be treating this person this way or not. Oh,
Absolutely.
this person has a problem and I am a human being like they are and I should be helping them because that's what we're here to do. So intuition, we can talk more about that. But also, the thing that like sparked my mind at the end of what you were saying is, how many people said like, oh, I have to check my soul, when I go into work, and they
Yeah.
feel like they are dying every day
Yeah.
because they cannot be authentic, they cannot be, that the coherent one person. They feel like they have to be one person at work and one person the rest
Yeah.
of the day. And
Yeah.
that just kills people, kills productivity, and
Yeah.
causes all the problems that we're going to talk about that organizations have because they don't have leaders that know how to lead with their soul. Would you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I believe that our authenticity is our power source. And so if we're having to turn a switch on and off, like you just mentioned, we're in some space or place, either personally or professionally, we're showing up inauthentically, and that's costing. And what we'll get into as we start this conversation, we'll find out is that when people are turning that switch on and off, and they get into roles or they get into leadership positions, ultimately organizations suffer because people aren't bringing them whole self. They're not bringing their whole selves to work. They're bringing a part of themselves to work, or they're showing up as they can, or how they think that they'll be perceived or
Mhm.
accepted. And so that, over a period of time, that wears at the soul, that can become problematic. I've worked in education over 2 decades, and I have a lot of friends in education. My husband's in education, and so we're always having these roundtable discussions, even if we're out to dinner on the weekend. It's terrible, but anyway, that comes up. So a lot of my friends that are still in schools, especially those that are in the trenches, they're in that place. They're having this inner conflict. They're not being able to be you know show up authentically here. They've got to be they're constantly code switching, and that impacts the work. And so just about everyone that I know that is in education is looking for an exit strategy. So
Oh, not just in education. I
yeah.
mean, pre setting the recording, we were talking about the quiet quitting and how that's a real thing. People are check out
Yeah.
at work. They are like butts in seat, warming up, the keyboard on the computer, pretending that they're working, but checking Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok or Instagram, whatever it is, and not really engaged. This is what productivity. Did you know this is stats, right? People are productive 31% of the time. That's like
Wow.
crazy. That's like 3 hours a day. But that is because
Wow.
they don't have the empowerment, the motivation, the desire to actually put an impactful work out there because they don't feel seen by their bosses or their leaders. They
Yeah.
don't feel like they matter. And
Yeah.
so why bother?
Yeah. Or even connected to a really, really big organizational, goal or mission and vision. There usually is some type of disconnect between, what their soul is calling them to do and then what they're doing. And so I've seen that a lot. I've definitely, witnessed that. And so that too has an impact over time. You hear the term, people selling their souls for a paycheck, or, that type of thing. And it's a real issue. It's a real phenomenon. And so I think one of the critical functions of leadership is to be able to articulate a clear and compelling vision. And once that happens, then it's a little bit easier for a person to be able to say, I can get behind that. I've got a
Mhm.
skill set and talents and gifts that I can contribute to that, and I can get behind that. When that's not clear, then people, they don't get to make that choice, right? A lot of assumptions are made, and there's a lot of breakdown in communication over years, changes in leadership, changes in the North Star for the organization, lots of different things. But I go back to that idea of leadership, and one of the top functions is being able to really articulate and lay out what that vision is, cast that vision. This is where we're going, and this is how we're going to get there. And part of that being seen and heard is, this is your role, and this is how it contributes to this bigger vision, that we have for the organization at large. And so when that doesn't happen, it's very easy to slip through the cracks. It's very easy to only, be productive 31% of the time. So, and I think that's challenging, for leaders. Our world is shifting and changing in so many ways. And so, it's a huge challenge for leaders to be able to do that. I mean, we've got a lot of things. You've got, they're overly, steeped in politics these days. And you've got, just all of the gender wars, and you've got, there's just so much. And so it's hard for leaders. I get that. I just made a post earlier today on LinkedIn talking about moving away from this idea of there being a perfect leader. There's no such thing as a perfect leader. While we do,
because there are no perfect humans,
no perfect humans, yeah. Right? But there is a level of integrity and transparency that is required to, to do that work.
So one of the things I feel personally affects the efficacy and effectiveness of a leader in order to step into that soulful leadership is that many people get thrown into this leadership role because it appears to be the next logical step in their career. But one, they might have no interest whatsoever to be a leader. Two, they might never had the experience to, lead a team. And I believe, I have degrees like you, and you've been in education for 20 years and a doctorate candidate. So, you're going to hopefully agree with what I'm going to say. You have to actually get to do the work, want to do it, and more importantly, be connected with who you are so you can see the person on the other side. It's really a skill that you cannot get out of the textbook. That's my experience.
Yeah. There's a statistic. I think it reads that there are about 83 organizations agree that leadership programming is needed to build those pipelines like you're talking about, and moving people along and have succession plans in place. And only 5% of organizations really have in-house leadership development to be able to prepare people to move into those next roles. So there's definitely, a correlation, as we were just talking about, overall efficacy and the impact of leadership. And so we know that. And when I say we, as a whole, as a society, as organizational leaders, yet developing leadership capacity or building capacity is often something that happens as a byproduct or something that is reactive or, oh, by the way, right?
And it's like, okay, this is the buzzword. This is what's happening in the world right now. We must have leadership development for our, employees. But it comes to be, I feel like it's almost like DEI, right? Like this checklist, yes, like, absolutely. Okay, leadership development. We're going to have, the 5% that have in-house training. So let me ask you a question, like, because I've been in those situations where I get inside training. What do you know about leadership that you're going to teach me? Because nothing against the in-house leadership development, but my thing is, if you haven't been in those shoes, how are you going to teach me how to be a leader, right? Yeah. And so this is where I think people like you and me come very handy, and to organizations where we have lived through this. Yeah, we know what it is to lead people. We know what it is to get the best out of people in real life situations, not out of the textbook, not out of like some bunch of statistics that Google can tell you, not about AI. I've been there. I have made people who were maybe C performers by changing my leadership style, by being able to see the people, by being able to spot what they care about, transform them in A+, even leaders too. And so it's not like in-house leadership development doesn't work, but what level?
I often think of the in-house development like what you were just explaining about what to do, right? If you think about just some of the technical aspects of the job, and maybe I've not worked in the finance industry or in insurance or whatever. When I think about leadership development and building capacity, and this is kind of, just the core, just the table stakes of Solstice Leadership Consulting, I'm thinking more about how you do what you do, not what you do, but how are you doing that? So it's more of a being versus doing.
Doing.
And so really at the heart of Solstice
Mhm.
is self-leadership,
Mhm.
because we take ourselves to work, we take ourselves to our teams, we take ourselves, so it's back to this, like back to basics, like
Mhm.
individually, who are you and how are you really improving and enhancing your ability to lead self first? Because we've got a lot of leaders that are showing up in organizations and wanting to lead groups and teams and divisions, and they're not able to manage and lead themselves effectively. So I feel like the first layer, and this is kind of that, transformationally speaking, like how this is different, or how we approach to, or about how our approach at Solstice is different in terms of supporting organizations. We want to work with individuals first. That's the first layer. And once I get you in the mirror, because I believe that the real magic happens in the mirror, that's the person that you take to work every day, right? Remember, I said you can't be professionally who you are not personally. And so as you become a better manager of self, more self-aware, understanding empathy, better communication, and all of these things that you have agency over individually, it is then and only then that you can show up in an organizational or in a collective setting and give and be at your best. And I
Yes.
think that is the missing piece. We are throwing a lot of, things, and a lot of organizations are throwing a lot of money at development, and, oh, come do this program, come do these assessments. But we're really not making that connection, in terms of really supporting an environment around continuous improvement, looking at the individual level. And so that's kind of where we play a little bit at Solstice. And I think, that's huge, and that it's often overlooked.
I cannot agree with you more. And it's very interesting because I was recently talking to this company, and they were surprised that my proposal included one-on-one coaching with the leaders. And
Absolutely.
all they wanted to do to check the box was to have these like group workshops or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, that's not where the magic happens. Because what happens is that in a stressful situation, which is the reality of a day-to-day work, in corporate America and in every industry, it's like you have fire drills, you have stressful situations, you have complex problems to solve. What is going to happen with the leader as a person, as a human being, is that you're going to go into a fight or flight response,
Yeah.
and you're going to get into your survival mode. In
Yeah.
your survival mode is not your pretty mode. It's not where you're
Right.
collected, right? It's not where you are thinking clearly. This is where your lizard brain takes over, and then you say the things that you don't want to say, and you treat people the way you don't want to treat them. And then maybe if you are a little bit aware, you realize that you didn't do a good job, but then your ego gets in the way and you don't want to apologize. And it just trickles down from there.
Yeah.
And so it is in the mirror. I love what you said. It's the mirror work that changes organizations, because this is not a nice to have. People, like, I talk to so many companies like, oh, maybe later. Well, you now is when you are losing employees. Now is when you're losing productivity. Now is when you cannot find the right talent. And then
Yeah.
you're wondering why.
And I think that connection is, people are still not making that connection.
Mhm.
There was a study I was reading the other day that said about 52% of employees said that they would remain in their roles if they had more effective leadership.
Oh, yeah.
52%, over half, right? So we're just not making the connection to the quality and the capacity of leaders throughout the organization to the bottom line. So we've got people, a lot of times organizations are very profit driven, and we don't really make that connection that, hey, let's back up a little bit. Yeah, we know that the bottom line is suffering, and we're not performing as well as we did in times past. Let's go back to our people. So what do? We go in and we change directions. We create a new North Star. We create a new, product line. We do. We don't think about how we be. We just continue to do, and we neglect a lot of opportunities to really go back and bring the people along. You can only build and sustain and maintain the vision and mission of an organization with people. The people are the greatest asset. People say it's customers. It's the people first. The people precede the customers, because if you don't have
Right.
people, you can't even service clients or customers. You won't even have a customer base without people. So, there are a lot of organizations who are, making it and getting it right in terms of really emphasizing the people piece. And then we have those that are, like any time that there's, this diffusion of innovation, we've got the stragglers, those that are kind of, coming behind. You're the last to come in. About the time you get on board, it's the goalpost has been moved again. And then you've got those early adopters. You've got those that are out there, really on the cutting edge of this, and really leading the way and becoming a model and a prototype for other organizations. But it's people first. It always has been, and it always will be. And so when we see organizations really in making the investment, and like you said, past this idea of, check the box compliance, got it done, need a DEI workshop, got it done, need some leadership, training done, just more of this comprehensive idea of how do we really, really develop capacity. And then it's got to be happening over time. So there's got to be this commitment to it, not just to write a check, but the time, the energy, the effort, alignment to, once again, that big vision that's in the organization. Why is this important? Because it supports and it undergirds this. And we're not going to get there, from here as we are. So all of those things begin to come into play. And I think it's easier said, of course, than done, but there has to be a commitment really in this call around effective leaders throughout. And that's at every level in the organization, not just in the C-suite.
Right. But it does have to start with the C-suite, I feel, based on my experience as an employee.
Yes.
Because it didn't matter at times where, you have the middle management level or even like the senior level people doing the right thing if the C-suite was stuck in the old ways. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much you can do to create that environment of, oh, we really matter, so let's
Yeah.
give our 100% here.
Yeah.
By the way, there's no such thing as 100% of productivity. There's a study from the Boston Consulting Group that says that if you get to 70% productivity, you need to really like pat yourself in the back. So,
Oh, wow. I
yeah,
can see that.
yeah.
I can
We're
see.
humans, right? You need to go to the bathroom. You need to take a break.
Yeah. I can
But
see.
70% is hard to get when you don't have the support of the C-suite. Like, what is your take on where to start? Let's
Yeah.
rephrase it like that. How do companies start with this?
I think it comes first to normalizing a growth environment. And I talked a little bit about this, establishing this culture and climate around continuous improvement. A lot of times, and I saw this a lot in education, and I'm sure that it happens in corporate settings as well, is you are placed in a role. So for example, I have a heart for middle managers. I was, worked in campus administration for a decade. So I get what it's like to try to lead from the middle. I totally get that. But what usually happens in these situations is the growth is only reserved for people that are struggling in their work. And so there's this negative connotation around being developed, being coached, additional training and support. When if we would normalize the idea that growth, everyone is growing. So whether I'm a high performing, high functioning, mid-level manager and my team, we're meeting targets and we're, all of that, it doesn't matter. I still get support because my ability to lead still needs to be enhanced. Or if I'm struggling and I'm at the director level and maybe I'm, struggling to bring my, my team and my people along, it may be a little bit more urgent for me, but I need support too. So part of the problem that I've seen in my work is that there's this taboo around the idea of coaching and support and training because we reserve it simply for those that are struggling in their performance. And so it's a bit of a paradigm shift that I think that really needs to take place, where this idea of growth, everyone is growing. There's a saying that says every coach needs a coach, right?
Oh yeah.
Everyone in the organization is committed to, constantly becoming a better version of themselves. And we can't do that when there's this divide and we're the C-suite. So basically what we're saying is when we don't adopt this mentality is that we've arrived and we don't have anywhere to grow to. And all of the growth is pushed down and focused down, and it's kind of scattered around the organization, around the teams or the people that are struggling. What would happen in a world where everyone is receiving some type of support, some type of training, some type of coaching, whether that's group coaching, one-to-one, whatever that looks like? I mean, the sky is the limit there. But that is one of the ways that you can create an environment where growth it's normed. Everybody's, yeah, who are you working with? Well, I'm working with this person. Like, it's normed throughout the organization. And it's still today very, very taboo. And it's very reactionary. When something happens, then we want to go in and provide that support. So I do think it flows back up to that C-suite level where you were talking about, because that is the level at which organizational vision is cast. If I'm in the middle, I don't have the luxury, I don't have the responsibility or the obligation to cast vision for an entire organization. But as I'm casting that vision for my team, or for my direct reports or the people that I'm responsible for, if I've got a strong sense of what's happening above me and what that looks like, I can connect those dots and make sure that we're doing the work that we need to do to get there. So, and that's a different approach, because we're in a fast-paced society. Do more, produce more. AI, move it quicker, move it faster, doubling that. It's just go, 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 go. But it should be grow, 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 grow.
So, excuse me, I'll clean that. So, couple of things that come to mind, like thoughts that I haven't had in my head for a long time, is I remember when I was in grad school, a professor said that, as leaders, you need to have what's called creative thinking, right? Which is time to look inside. They didn't explain it like that, but now, knowing what I know what it is now. Time to look inside, to calibrate, to ground, so you can use that intuition that we talked about earlier, and be able to help your people, grow and develop. But also, it's funny that you were talking about like how we normalize this growth culture, because I am one of those people that I need to be learning something every day. Like, I'm literally like, okay, so I finished this course. I mean, like, I'm talking like every day. What I'm gonna master now. And that was actually reflected in my career too. Like, after, I will get into a job, I will learn everything I need to learn about that. I will master it. Then I will develop someone in my team that can step into my role, and I will go get another job.
Yeah.
That is an advice I got from a CEO about 20 years ago. Because I remember I always been one of those people like, can I get an opportunity? Can I get the job? You're right. And I remember I asked him, I was like very bold, 20-something-year-old Carmen. And I said, how can I get the next opportunity? And what he told me was, you always have to have the replacement ready. And so I took that to heart. And so that's what I did all my career. That's why you see, like, if you get to see my resume, it's like promotion after promotion after promotion, sometimes lateral, right? But like, I got to know so much about the company because I was always given the opportunities to move to things that I didn't know anything about. But I had that reputation that I would learn it quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I have this growth mindset. And so how do we get people to get to that?
Yeah. Well, ultimately it's a choice, and I often think about, you don't want to be the person that waits for crisis to change.
Mm-hmm.
If we just kind of think a little bit from just like an emotional intelligence standpoint, you don't want to wait until something happens and then you decide to go and do something about it. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we think about this idea of the fixed mindset and the growth mindset, the growth mindset is really a way of life and being and doing. You know, Usually if you're fixed in one place or space, you're fixed across the board. If
Mm-hmm.
you have a growth mindset, you usually have a growth mindset across the board. That's not one of those, parts of us that we turn on and we turn off. And personally, I'm very stuck, but professionally, I'm very, innovative and creative. Like it usually doesn't work that way. There usually, are some outliers. But I think it's ultimately a choice. It's a choice to be better. It's a choice to want to expand. It's a choice to want to extend your skill set. And I've been in positions like that professionally as well, where I've been in roles and I've said, hey, I think I'm kind of maxed out at this role. I don't know that there's a lot more for me to be able to learn. So it's probably either time for a new role or time to shift up what this role is going to, is really going to look like, what some of those key responsibilities and duties are going to be. And so it's a choice, right? It's the choice that you make when you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, I know I'm underperforming. I know there's a lot more in me that I could be doing, not pushing, myself, not growing, not expanding. I've cultivated a sense of self awareness because I've worked on that piece of myself and that piece of my being, that I can feel that, and so I feel much better being able to say that to a VP or my boss or whatever, other than just kind of flying under the radar and just letting it, hey, I'm just here. That's how the idea of things like quiet quitting start, right? Because
Oh yeah, because people it's like, well, yeah, I don't have
right.
anywhere to go, so might as well collect my paycheck. And I love that we're talking about this because it's like, as you say, very, very well said, that you either have a mindset of growth or you don't, right? So if we install or fortify that muscle by giving
Mhm.
coaching to leaders, then they will apply that to all aspects of their leadership. And so you think about it from the bottom line in an organization, why wouldn't you want to promote with it? Why wouldn't you want everyone in your company to rise? Because you save a lot of money in recruiting fees. You know the time it takes to train someone to transfer the institutional knowledge that goes out the door when someone leaves.
And I don't even think you can really quantify the momentum that you lose when you lose key people, right? Or those key positions that would, they keep coming available because of, all these different reasons. I don't even think you can put a dollar amount on the momentum that you lose, toward your goals or toward, big initiatives that you have when you're constantly having to stop and onboard and offboard. Think about just a train ride, right? And I'm in Dallas and I'm trying to get to St. Louis, like Fred Sanford, right? And I'm constantly stopping, picking up, taking off. It's going to take forever to get there. It's going to take forever to get there. And by the time we, get on the outskirts of St. Louis, guess what? We don't even want to be in St. Louis anymore. We're heading to Denver now. And
Yeah.
so we start and we're heading in a totally different direction. So it's the same, the same type of thinking, just not really stopping long enough to really quantify, like, what is this really costing us as an organization when we're not able to, recruit and retain, highly qualified leaders throughout the organization. And sometimes, like anything else, you just normalize the open door, the revolving door. I can remember in a particular school in one of the districts that I worked in, and I think 6 leaders in 5 years. That's more than a leader a year. One of
Yeah.
those years, that means there were 2 leaders, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
went through 2 in one year. And it was a campus that was just continuously, underperforming and struggling, and lots of factors, lots of things there. But it's that type of thing. Like, what are we going to do differently? Because we bring in a new person, we pay them a little bit more than we paid the last person. but we already know that 52% of people said that they would give up the money for better or stay for better leadership. So
Right.
why are we not looking at the causes, right? Going deep, looking at the root causes, not just what we can see on the surface. On the surface, we know that we can't keep a leader. They might make it through a year without being out on FMLA or sick leave or stress leave because they've broken out in shingles or hives or whatever because of the stress. But how can we now, let's get deeper. So we bring in another principal, we pay them more money, and it happens again and it happens again because we don't really stop to take a look at what is this really, really costing us over time. So
You know what? People are actually getting very smart in interviews. Like I ask when I'm having an interview, like how many people have been in this role in the last
yeah,
5 years,
yeah.
and now we have LinkedIn, right? You can ask about.
Yeah. And here's the deal, Carmen. Like I'm building Solstice Leadership Consulting, but I still have a 9 to 5. I
Yes.
work for an ed tech company and have, been in that role for a while and have had, other opportunities and things like that. And so still being kind of, what some would call a parallelpreneur, building your business while you're still working your job. But because I've worked on myself and because I know the value that I bring to an organization because of who I am personally, I interview very differently than I did 5 or 10 years ago.
Mhm.
So you're not interviewing me. I'm really interviewing you
You,
to
yes.
see if this, first of all, is a growth environment, to see if leaders have really created the conditions, not only for me to do my job, but for me to continue to grow as a professional and as a leader. The person, if I'm replacing a role, why did that person leave? These are things that I want to know. And that's a different way. Like I'm not the 25-year-old, anymore looking, desperate for an opportunity and what they call it, bright eyed and bushy tailed. Like, no, I'm a woman of many years of experience. I'm a woman of a certain age now. And so if I'm going to be working for an organization, I've got some questions in every round, every place that I work, you learn new lessons, you take on more. And so I've got a list of questions now for an organization. If I were going to be, interviewing for a new position in the future that I didn't have 3 years ago when I came into this role. And
Mhm.
so that's the way it should be. And when we are growing, at that soul level, back to soul leadership, soul led, soul driven leadership, we should be growing. We should be expanding. Like I don't do toxic work cultures anymore. I don't do toxic environments anymore. I did that when I was younger because I didn't know
You didn't have any other choice,
I
right? You
didn't have
didn't
any
know
other
better. Yes.
choices. But knowing who I am and being the person that I am and the powerful manifester that I am, I'm not putting my soul and myself,
Mhm.
in that position. And so, but that's because I've done a lot of work on myself at the personal development level. And so if
Yeah.
we can bring that type of, work and introspection to people in organizations, I think we can begin to see a ripple effect.
And I want to add one more thing that generations behave different,
Mhm.
and the newer generations are very aware of this whole soulful way of living, of not putting up with drama, not putting up with toxicity. And whether you like it or not, Gen Xers, we're getting old, and companies need to continue. And so when I hear my teenager kids, and even like some friends that have kids in college, these next generation, they know they are not going to put up with any of the politics and the things that we had to deal with because there was no
Yeah,
other way around.
yeah,
And so if organizations want to stay afloat, they better equip the leaders today to change the culture so they can
yeah.
have meaningful people working for them in the future. Otherwise we're going to have to all resort to robots, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, see, the world is shifting, right? Everything, every industry, things are shifting. And I talked a little bit about this too earlier, I think this month on LinkedIn. And the world as we knew it is no more. So to continue to carry on in the ways, that we did, especially, prior to 2020, it's counterproductive, right? So, for example, I work, for a remote first company now. A lot of companies are, allowing the hybrid work environment. There's a ton of research around the increased productivity when
Mm-hmm.
people have that flexibility in their work and, that type of thing. But I have friends that are still working for organizations that are requiring them to drive an hour back and forth every day because the leadership hadn't caught up yet. And my personal opinion is, if I'm in a role and I'm not interfacing with customers every day, I really probably don't have to be in an office. Like, I get it, the camaraderie and the synergy and all of that of the group, which is why a lot of roles are now hybrid. If a person's local, I get that too. But that's just one example. So I remember being in the market several years ago. I've been home based in some type of hybrid remote role for the last decade. When I left the principalship in 2013, I, went into a role. I did consulting, and so I haven't gotten up and gone to a job every day in over 10 years. This summer will be 11 years. I didn't realize it was that had been that long. But my point is, the hybrid work environment is a norm now. So when we look at Gen X, as you're talking about, and other, our kids and our daughters, and they don't know what it's like to drive an hour and a half in the rain or the
Yeah.
cold or the sleet.
They won't do it. They would not. They're not going to do
To
it.
do it. And so
Mhm.
if an organization wants the talent that person's going to bring to the organization, they're going to have to find another way to get it. You know what I mean? So that type of innovation and being able to, and not being so fixed and wanting people to come into this office or, a call center, whatever that is, so that you can watch over people. And I don't even I don't even consider jobs that don't offer a hybrid. If I'm going to be working, it's going to be remote or hybrid. And if it says on site, I'm not interested. I'm just not. It doesn't jive with my lifestyle. I've got two middle schoolers. I'm in a doctoral program. I'm building a business. I'm a professional. Like, I've got all these things. And so for an organization in 2024 to tell me that I'm gonna have to get in my car,
Yeah.
get up and get dressed and commute every single day because they haven't caught a vision big enough to know and understand that I could be just as productive sitting here in my home office, that's probably an indication that there are some other culture components that would not be in alignment with me. So
Absolutely. Because it's like being a helicopter parent, right? It's like micromanaging, right?
yeah.
But
Oh, it's on site. I'm like, not for me.
yeah. So Stephanie, I think we can talk about this topic for days.
I know. This is my jam, right? This is my jam. I love it. I love it. I love it so much.
So maybe we're gonna have to have take two of the episode just to continue deeper in the conversations as we see the new trends that arise in 2024. But before um, we say goodbye in this episode, I wanted to make sure you have an opportunity to tell people where to connect with you and if there's anything exciting happening that they should be looking out for.
Yeah. Well, I can be found on LinkedIn. That's really where I play mostly these days. So I'm Stefani Morrow on LinkedIn, and you'll see the spelling of my name here on the screen. You can also follow us on Instagram at Solstice Unlimited. We are there. And then there's a website that is actually under construction. There's a little bit of information there, and we're building out some things there. Very excited about the work that we're going to be doing in the organization at StefaniMorrow.com. It's my name, StefaniMorrow.com. So lots of great things coming this year. Super excited. We definitely got a book project coming up later this year. Nice. So excited about that as well. And we're just here to serve, So very excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. It's been, as always, delightful to, talk with you and have this soul-felt conversation about leadership. And I wish you all the best. And I hope we, stay connected. And for you guys listening to the podcast, stay tuned for another episode next week. And until then, don't forget to lead intentionally. Bye-bye.